Ms. Haaland, thank you for being with us tonight. The hiring committee in this room has many critical concerns about the current condition our state is in. We are looking for the person who is best qualified to represent us in Washington, D.C. You have 2 minutes per question and will be signaled when you have 15 seconds left to conclude your answer. Number 1, there is continual talk about the need to cut federal spending. New Mexico receives a disproportionately high amount of federal funds due to our base and labs. Where would you cut federal spending and why?
I actually don't think we should cut federal spending. I'd really like to see us give the labs new missions, and I think with all the PhDs we have in the state that we can find solutions to climate change. So I would propose giving more money to the labs, more funding to the labs, putting people on that project, and look, I think we can find a lot of solutions to climate change, and I think that would be a good spending of taxpayer money.
Is there a particular place that you would cut federal spending?
I honestly can't think of a place I would cut federal spending right now. We of course need to build revenue in this state and in this district, and that means supporting small businesses, making sure that we find new revenue streams for our schools and for everything else that we need. So perhaps if we can build up our film industry, build up our brewery industry, legalize cannabis and have that funding stream going through New Mexico, that we can talk about cutting federal spending at that time.
Okay, thank you. Healthcare costs have increased up to 110% over the last 10 years. This is a two-part question with a 2-minute limit, so we'd like you to spend about a minute on each question. The first part, what type of plan do you favor in regards to healthcare? Single payer, open market, self-insurance, or something else?
Well, I think that we need universal health care, meaning that every single person in this country should have the ability to have health care. When you look at other countries who have gone to universal health care, their per capita spend is less than ours right here in the United States. So I think that we would get more money, more for the dollar if we went to universal health care, and so yes, I would favor that.
Okay, thank you. What would you do to ensure that New Mexicans can obtain good health insurance at a reasonable cost?
Well, I think that I don't like the idea of us talking about repealing the Affordable Care Act, because that's what we have right now. And that has insured millions and millions of more people across our country than anything prior to that, not to mention the Medicaid expansion that has helped a tremendous number of New Mexicans, considering that half of our population is Medicaid eligible. So I think we need to definitely keep the Affordable Care Act so that we can ensure that kids to the age of 26 are insured, that people with pre-existing conditions don't go by the wayside, and in the meantime, work on other solutions like universal health care.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Haaland, every few years the Congress has discussions about a base realignment and closure, or BRAC. New Mexico has 4 military bases, which receive federal funds, employs many civilians, and contributes to our economy. If you are serving and BRAC discussions resume, what would be your position in regards to New Mexico?
I would always want to make sure that our bases stay open. Kirtland Air Force Base right now is a center for research and training, high-tech research that I think needs to continue. I hate to think about any base closing here in New Mexico, because that would certainly be a loss of jobs. So I think Kirtland in particular serves an extremely good purpose, and that we should do everything we can to make sure that they stay open.
Thank you. Immigration significantly impacts our state and our country. What is your #1 priority on immigration, and how do you plan to ensure it happens?
Sure. Well, I could probably name 10 things right now to do with immigration. I know we are all horrified to see the separation of families on the southern border just recently, but I really feel like there's a tremendous backlog, and sometimes that causes a lot of people to not move forward with their immigration process for sometimes 20 years. So I think one of the priorities could be to alleviate some of that backlog is to ensure that DACA recipients have a path to citizenship. Those are students, they're workers, they're our kids and our own friends and colleagues and coworkers and fellow students. And I think that if we were able to give DACA recipients citizenship, that considering the fact that this is the only country that they've really ever known, that would alleviate a lot of backlog with the system, give us an opportunity to revamp the system. I think that the process takes entirely too long, and it's very expensive because it's a complicated system, and people have to hire a lawyer in order to get the help they need. So additionally, I think we could also give veterans, undocumented folks who join our armed services, who are willing to go and fight for our country, should have citizenship.
Thank you. Please tell us specifically, with concrete examples, what you think can be done to reduce the U.S. deficit.
Well, I mentioned earlier that if we went to universal health care, that would really save our country a tremendous amount of money. I also don't think that it's a wise idea to give the top 1% of our population tax breaks when we have to borrow the money to do it. I don't think we should borrow money to give people tax breaks. I think that there are other ways to make that happen that would certainly be a start.
Okay, thank you. In 2 minutes or less, please tell the hiring committee why you believe you are the best candidate to represent the people of CD1.
Thank you. Well, I think building relationships is one of my best qualities. I've worked across the state for close to 20 years, working in underrepresented communities, working to register voters, get people out to vote, working on campaigns of candidates I believed in, because I felt that we should elect people that can move our state forward. I have a law degree from UNM School of Law. I was a tribal administrator at the Pueblo San Felipe and worked on their federal programs. I also ran a service provider for mentally disabled adults right here in Albuquerque. I owned my own small business for 11 years. I had a salsa company. And so I think that, number one, building relationships is something that I'm extremely good at and that I intend to do when I go to Congress. Additionally, as a 35th generation Mexican, I love this state. I love this state. I love the people in it. I've worked very hard to make everything that we do a better place. I want to go to Congress to make sure that all our kids have an early childhood education. And I think that would be one of the best things we could do for our state.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Deb Haaland. The hiring committee or voters of CD1 will let you know on November 6th if you have been selected to fill the job of U.S. Representative.
Thank you so much.